You. All right, there we go. Now I'm on everything. Um, so it's Patreon over here, TikTok over there, and then StreamYard and YouTube over here in front of my face. Um, yeah, so December 5th, 2025. I mean, saying the year sounds so futuristic to me, but we're in the era where we've got the e-bikes, e-cars. Um, it's not exactly as futuristic as I imagined it, but if you think about it, AI is here. Everyone thought AI would take a little bit longer. I mean, it's been around a while, but not as we deem it. Um, um, we got the movie Megan to kind of give us an idea what just a different idea. Chucky, just AI gone rogue. But we've had AI gone rogue movies for like decades now, haven't we? Anyway, 44. I'm not sure what to say. I'm. Mm, I guess I can say I'm in an all right place. Been let's see. I think I've been. Let's check the scoreboard. Um, uh, let's see. I have definitely taken like some major W's, but taken a lot of L's, right? But at least at this age, I have a lot more wisdom about, what happens when you do reach success and you do start making a lot more money and you're able to start buying a lot more stuff and you're able to save a lot more. I've been on that side of, the American success story. So that's kind of one of the things I'm kind of grateful for, and the age of 44. Um, I've been able to uh, adapt pretty well. I am supposed to be one of those old, grumpy dudes who are against change and hates everything about the shiny new object and I don't want to learn this new thing because I don't need it, or something like that. But I find that since I've been a software engineer for like 14 years, is that you have to be willing to know and get your hands dirty on the newer stuff in order to stay relevant within the changing times in tech. So that's just kind of that's where I am. That's kind. It's a weird, messed up place to be, where you're old enough to be like stuck in your ways, but you're young enough to understand that you can't be stuck in your ways. You have to learn a new stuff, in order to stay relevant in modern society, especially with how fast technology evolves. So that's kind of where I am. I'm kind of weird like that. Like I know AI. I do some AI development. I tested some AI across all the platforms, Azure, Google, and like Amazon. So I know the principal foundation. I know what's required. I know how it can be relevant to some applications, but when we're talking about solving major issues, um, I have not actually, um, I've not actually seen the type of implementation that it could have. Like for instance, like sooner or later, I think wearables are going to be the future of. They're going to eventually start replacing phones. Like your watch is going to be your new phone. You're not going to have a phone anymore. Now it's going to be a long time before that happens, but well, maybe, who knows? But I think that's where we're going. We're going to where like your glasses are going to be interfaces, technical or digital interfaces to help you adjust your eyesight, give you better vision, maybe some clearer hearing, meaning you're able to drown out some reckless noises and pay attention to some other kind of audio. You're going to be able to do selective hearing and selective seeing. You're going to be able to interact with people probably more on a social level, but a digital level. Like, if you think about it, if you knew someone digitally speaking, like basically, if these specs that I'm wearing right now, well, they're just computer glasses for the blue LED screen. Um, uh, but if they came with like this interface that allowed me to know who I am looking at as I navigate the world, you would feel a lot better about who you open up and talk to or initiate a conversation with. Um, Based off of some metrics or statistical data that kind of favors what you're looking for. Like, think about it. Okay, so the type of person you're looking for, this may be right. Like your attraction level for the random person that you're looking at is one thing, but the statistical data may say another. So, like you could be walking by a digital match, but if there's no interaction there or no openness to interact, um, nothing's going to happen, right? So you still need a human interface. You still need to open up and be open to receive and communicate and all that. So this is just where my thoughts are in pertaining to how we're going to probably move forward in interacting in a meta space, meaning the digital realities that will be interfacing with each other as we just move about the world. So AI is a big part of that. I mean, I've been developing an application that interfaces with this technology in order to help facilitate that to some extent. Um, I mean, it's just me doing it, so it's going to take a while for it to be released and blah blah blah. But uh, I guess one of the reasons I wanted to come up here was also to share in my 44 years on planet Earth in the United States, in Texas uniquely, is just how I grew up um, in an era of complete and total social normality, abnormality, acceptability, and respect. And this era was the era that I was born into, which was the 1980s. In the 1980s, there were freaks, there were geeks, there were cool, there were the loners, there were popular, there were cheerleaders, there were different types of people in your school, junior high, high school, that you met and accepted them for who they were. And they were like back then, the social normality of talking was everything. The biggest form of texting back then was writing notes and passing notes. Even that was an intimate way of communicating, like taking the time out to write a note with a pen and a pad, your thoughts about someone and your feelings about someone, or whether or not it's exchanging information, right? It is uh, texting is communication, but I believe in the 21st century, it's become like more disconnected rather than a connecting art. I think that when you able to like sit down and write someone a letter about, maybe what you're thinking or feeling about them, it's more intimate because the words that you create on paper are coming straight from you and not on some keyboard or a digital representation in which your thoughts have to be concise within 150 characters or something like that. Um, so yeah, so back in the 80s where I grew up, you woke up each morning and um, the pieces of technology that we had were the radio, television, and the telephone. Um, we had walkie talkies back then, but I mean, if you had a best friend, you would use a walkie-talkie with them, and you would wake up. They would wake you up. You would wake them up on the weekends, and be like, "Hey, you ready to come and play, or what are we gonna do, or are you ready to go get the other kids and let's hang out?" And da, da, da. So, yeah. So back back in these days, there was a lot more. Respect. I'm not even gonna, let's just use the word respect. Like there was so much respect back in the 1980s in so many ways. Um, I'm trying to quantify. Um, Men and women were not afraid of each other. Okay. Um, in the 1980s, there were some crime happening, and um, I think there was like in New York, crime has never been worse in New York or something like that. But in the 1980s, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying that it was actually perfect. I mean, there were some messed up things about the 80s, that in certain areas, but we're talking about generically speaking, in a greater society as ours, the 1980s were a far more respectable time. We just came out of the era of like women being like I think seriously I think moved to at the job or harassed at the job, something like that, something where um, harassment was kind of more tolerated in the workplace when women started to work. So back then there was a campaign and commercials about harassment and how it's unacceptable behavior. So that kind of like, culture of trying to respect women and better in the workplace, that was a campaign. That was something that was being preached in the 80s. So in the 80s, there was a lot of respect as far as, substance abuse, like cigarette smoking. There was an anti-cigarette smoking campaign. There was an anti uh, um, uh, THC use campaign. There was a lot of those anti-substance abuse or substance use campaigns back in the day. There was DARE program. The DARE program. I remember the DARE shirts. That there was a band and that used to play, and it was, all anti. Well, you know what it was. But back in the 80s, there was this culture of being a model citizen growing up. The culture back then was to influence children to stay away from these bad decisions and to grow up to be something better. And what was preached back then is to be a firefighter or a police officer or a lawyer. Um, there were basic or doctor. There were basic options that kids wanted to be in the 1980s to grow to be. Hey, you should be an accountant. You should be whatever, whatever. Now, career opportunities and job growth and things like that were prevalent back then. Back in the 1980s, a person had a job for 10 or more years and can mostly retire from having just one job. Back in the 1980s, the word affordability did not wasn't an issue to be had by your common American. The common American teenager can hold a job at a fast food restaurant part time, making $3 or $4 or $5 an hour, and afford a car, afford maintenance on that car, um, and have insurance for that car, and afford gasoline for that car, on that one part time job while still in high school back in the 1980s. So a father can work one job and earn enough to provide for a family in a household and his children on that one job, on that one salary, no other part time job, no other this, that, or whatever. The cost of living back in the 1980s was more respectable back then. The price of a house was more respectable back then. Um, uh, you could afford a car, gasoline, and a vacation. You know, back in the 1980s, families, a whole economic, social acceptability and practice was that families vacation every summer. In the 1980s, it was expected in school when you got out of school, um, the last day of school during the 1980s, people would ask each other, besides signing the yearbooks, um, what are you going to be doing this summer? What do you guys got planned for the summer? And it's either we don't know yet, or we're going to Disneyland or Disney World, or we're going to some theme park. We're going. For us here in Texas, it's like Fiesta Texas and Six Flags and SeaWorld. Back in the day, Houston, Texas had Astro World. So we would take a family vacation, not a family vacation, but a family day to Astro World and spend the weekend, the summers in the 1980s with my father, who still lives in Houston today, of course, but we would spend summers with him, and he would take us to Astro World and Water World, which was a walking distance. It was right across. So back in the 1980s, it was socially acceptable and normal for families to take a vacation together to go somewhere and to have a good time. And money back then isn't money now, but you didn't need a credit card loan or to take out a payday loan in order to take this family vacation. Back in the 1980s, kids got presents for their birthday, whether it be one toy or two toys and some clothes that we really don't want. Kids got presents for their birthday. That was expected back in the 1980s. Your birthday came once a year, and if you were good, you got the present that you wanted, at least one of them, one or two of them, if they can make the finances work. But back in the 1980s, all of these kids' toys, which were the biggest thing on the market, were affordable back then. Um, $20 to $30 a gift item is what you would expect to spend. So $60 to $90, you're buying either 5 or 6 items back then. $100 went a lot further and purchased a lot more items for your child for their birthday or Christmas back in the 1980s. Back in the 1980s. And once you get presents as a child back in the 1980s, you're not you're not disappointed. You're happy. You're happy. You're thankful. You're grateful. You love your parents. You know your parents love you. Um, You tell all your friends, all the first people who know about the toys you got are going to be your friends. You call your friends, or the next day you wake up, everybody comes to your house because they know it's the day after your birthday, so they want to know what toys you got, and and then hey, let's play together. Toys, let's pick new toys. So yeah, or Christmas too. It's like that. Every Christmas back in the 1980s, the day after Christmas, everybody it was expected back in my day that everybody ran outside. Like we ran outside, like, oh my God, you won't believe what I got. What'd you get? What'd you get? Like this exchange of in-person information that was shared among children about the toys that their parents got them or what Santa got them for Christmas was just it was the adrenaline rush, the heart pounding expectation, the newness of the toys that you have in order to break them in or to create a better play experience with your friends was everything back in the 1980s. I got a racetrack. So this racetrack, two people can have a controller and then race the two remote control cars around the track and then whatever. But you race and then if somebody wins and loses, you give it up and somebody else gets a turn and somebody else gets a turn and somebody else gets a turn. But you did things like that, right? You took turns on new toys. You broke in other new toys while you were waiting. You were playing and using your imagination back in the 1980s. Um, Nintendo was hooked up. Well, Nintendo was out back then in the 1980s, early 80s, but barely anybody had one because they were so expensive back then. I mean, they were $200 for a brand new Nintendo entertainment system. They sold commonly for like $299 or something back then. Um, but like, I guess the important part of it is that we weren't online, right? We weren't the biggest portion of it is that we were all offline. Like all of our lives were just disconnected from this technological revolution bubble that we live in now. But those I'm telling you about the 1980s because it's an era in which I know that if you're an adult now, if you're 20 years old right now, you don't know what I'm talking about. Maybe if you're 30 years old, you probably don't know what I'm talking about either, right? You're asking yourself like why you can't approach anyone or why anyone can approach you or why is it difficult to connect with someone. And the reason is all of the technology that we're exposed to and that we're interacting with on a daily basis. And the reason I have to tell you about the 1980s is because it is a complete life existence without any of this. And to tell you this experience may be nostalgic for me, but I only hope that it can inspire you to hopefully understand what I am saying, why I am saying it, and how we are going to move forward as a society in a new digital modern era that we're existing in. But yeah, man, the 80s were I mean, I'm the only thing I can explain is that I am sorry to the 30s and 20-year-olds and teenagers who missed it. I mean, it's just it was the greatest moment in American history in which everyone came outside to interact with each other without knowing each other's like you like what is a name like you knew Chucky from down the street you knew it back let me you know what no I'm just gonna go we're going back to the 80s I'm 44 and you just gonna have to hear it you're just gonna have to hear it you're just gonna have to hear it because this happened and this is real life and we're living it now and maybe you didn't grow up this way but I'm gonna tell you how I grew up only because this is where I mean if I had a television production company I would just show the 1980s all over again only for you to walk away learning that you can interact with people and not be afraid. So in the 1980s, adults and children interacted with each other on a regular basis, appropriately, like respectfully. Like, I'm a child, you're an adult, and there's like, oh, like you're a sir or you're a ma'am, and you're a Mister or Miss, and if you're an adult. Um, these lines and expectations and social behaviors were the norm. Like, respect in the 1980s was the norm. Walking an old lady across the street is a norm. Like, she needed your help, you see her wobbly, or you see her on a walker, or you see her with a cane, then it was like your responsibility and social expectation to assist where you could, especially elderly people. Um, the chivalry was respected by every child and adult. Um, Children would hold open doors for grown women, especially around their fathers, because when I was with my dad, it was expected that I am to hold the door open for not only women but older men. So older men, like who are my dad's age or my grandpa's age, I would hold the door open for him, only be out of a sign of respect. And it wasn't a sign of weakness or like or anything malicious or ill intended. Like, these are things that were socially expected of children and adults back in the 1980s. Like, it was the regular thing to do. Um, uh, people at People in the 1980s, if you look at every single movie that you've ever seen produced in the 1980s, were happy. Life was a reason, like, life in the 1980s um, was a reason to, like, get up, sing, and dance because the sun was out. Like, if you think of, like, the movies in the 1980s, like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or, you know, um, Adventures in Babysitting, or Mystery Date, or uh, I mean, I mean, not only just the movies, but Karate Kid. Um, not only the movies, but the TV shows, the television shows. The television shows of the 1980s were all about different families. All the shows in the 80s preached family, functional or as dysfunctional as they may be. But they were the Cosby Show, it was Married with Children, it was Family Ties, it was Step by Step. And there was a lot of shows like Family Matters. There were a lot of shows, and every show in the 1980s were about families. Full House, like Families, Blossom. That was the 90s, but still. Um, I remember. I will tell you something about myself, and why else am I here? But I grew up a Nickelodeon kid. I am Mr. Nickelodeon. I am Nickelodeon back in the 1980s. Oh my God. Um, Saturday morning cartoons back in the 1980s were better. They just were. It was He-Man, it was Thundercats, it was Voltron, it was it was a lot, right? It was uh, it was just it's just unreal. A lot of a lot of television shows back in the 80s, you know, no DVR, right? No DVR back then. Um, a VCR is something that we had, and you only could use a VCR back then to play movies. Blank tapes, in order to record shows, didn't come out until maybe like later 90s. That's when media kind of gave us the ability to start recording, was back in the 90s. The 90s, you had a blank VCR tape that you can record television, and then you had a blank cassette tape where you can record music from the radio. So back in the 1980s, though, you only really just had the player, and the player only played movies, and you can rewind or fast forward and pause. But back in the 1980s, you rented movies from Blockbuster. You spent hours looking for what movie was out. If the movie was out, or if there was a movie that you were interested in, people spent time. A lot of people spent time reading in the back of the movie at Blockbuster. Like, I spent at least 45 minutes going through different movies and choosing which movie looked interesting enough to read the back of the movie and find out, like, okay, what's going on. And if the movie was interesting enough, if the writing was interesting enough to make the movie sell me the movie and make me watch it, that was a better type of marketing campaign back then of film and media back then. So yeah, so back in the 1980s, you were spending a lot of time reading the back of movies at Blockbuster Video, deciding which movie to rent. And I believe some movies had different prices because of, different rating system back then, like rated R, so it's $7.99 versus a kids movie, which is like $2.99 or something a night or something like that. So yeah, I hated they had a rewind policy, where like if you brought the tape in and they had to rewind it, they like charged an extra fee or whatever. Um, and then they started inventing like tape rewinders and stuff, and everybody started doing that. But uh, yeah, so media was different back then, right? You only had cable TV wasn't really a thing. Well, I'm here in Texas during the 80s, so I don't know how it is on the East Coast or West Coast. Maybe cable TV, they've had it since whatever, right? I can't speak on that in the 80s. I mean, for California or New York, I mean, I'm pretty sure they maybe had better technology than we did have in the far south. Just saying. But yeah, so 1980s was like the height of social acceptability. No one was really out. Everyone in the 1980s, absolutely everybody is outside doing something. We are all outside doing something, and I wish that we could. I really wish that we could get back to that. Everybody is outside doing something, and businesses grew and planned on that. Thursday night, it's post football game, so all the parents in the football, they're all going to whatever for a while because it's where they go hang out, and then they go home. Or oh, it's Friday night, so everyone's gonna be over here. So when everyone goes to bars and clubs and things like that, and then after that, they're gonna be at this after hours spot for a couple hours, and they're all gonna hang out, and then It's like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and then they finally go home, and then we close up, and then. So, like, or the teenagers are all gonna be at the mall. Teenagers at the mall is like a tale as old as time. Like, teenagers, I swear, need to live at the mall, live at the mall that they're closest to. Like, only because it's such a social environment where kids can hang out, shop, um, eat, drink there, hang out, arcade, tournaments, whatever, best of the best, whatever it's going to be. But back in the 1980s, the arcade was everything. The video game arcade was everything. You had to play the new game that came out. You had to. It was the law, it was the rules. Um, you had to beat every game that you tried to play. I mean, you saved up your allowance back in the 1980s in order to turn it into quarters, and those quarters went right into the freaking arcade to have as many lives as possible to get past that one stage that you couldn't get past. Back in the 1980s, if one friend had a Nintendo on the block, we're all going to spend the night and have a slumber party at that friend's house. So we can all take turns playing the Nintendo on the family TV. We all take over the family TV if the friends, like, think about it. You only had like one TV in the whole house, and the Nintendo's always disconnected. So like you can only really play it if your parents are at home or if it's like late at night and everyone's asleep, right? At least, that's how it was back in the 1980s. But yeah, so we would have a slumber party at Nintendo Boy's house. Yo man, Nintendo Kid, let's go to Nintendo Kid's house. So yeah, flying back in the 1980s, you can go to the store, a gas station, and you can find toys for kids in the 1980s. I was able to buy a kite, and I would, how you would go to like, I don't know, some store, and you look at posters and you want to see which one looks cool. Well, it was the same deal with kites, and we would just look at the kites that came rolled up or whatever. They would show you the picture of what they'd actually look like unfolded, and you would kind of go through, okay, this one. You would buy the kite from the convenience store. You would go outside in a clear area, and you would just fly a kite for a while. Back in the 1980s, flying a kite was pretty damn cool. It was a nice hobby. You made sure to stay away from power lines, obviously, and trees, obviously. You would be able to talk and hang out with someone while flying a kite and doing tricks and stunts and just enjoying the weather and being outside. Back in the 1980s, you were outside because being inside is boring. Being inside all day in your house, in your room, was how you were grounded. If you were grounded, do you know what being grounded is in the 1980s? Being grounded is having to stay inside of your room by yourself or being trapped in the house. That's what being grounded is. Being grounded is just being trapped in the house. That's the worst punishment in the 1980s, is being grounded. Stop, not the ability, the restrictive punishment of not being able to go outside and play with your friends is punishment as a child. It really is. Especially back in the 1980s. Like, for good, the love of all that's, human. Like, what are you doing to me? What do you mean I'm grounded? For how long? That's your only question. Wait a minute, for how long? Why? You know, sorry, I want answers. I mean, you don't talk like that, but I mean, if you are, you are. But you know, I mean, hopefully you're trying to like, what you did back in the 1980s when you were grounded. You know what you did to get off groundation. I don't even know that's a word. Groundation. Back in the 1980s, you were under groundation, and you know how you get away. Uh, Little teaser there. You do chores. You do lots and lots and lots of chores. You do chores. In the 1980s, in order to get off punishment, in order to get off of being grounded, I did chores. I washed the dishes. I take out the trash. I raked the leaves. I cleaned up the house. I cleaned up my room, and I cleaned up the bathtub, the tile. I did clean up the bathroom pretty good. And then I organized, I think, the garage, and I was able to get off of like groundation, like 2, 3 days, something like that. So, like, you would be able to, like, back in the 1980s, like, oh, I knew what to do. If I were in big enough trouble, like my grades in school or something, or I got an F or something, yeah, I'd have to like work my ass off. Like I didn't know what they wanted, but if they complained about something's always a mess, I'm like, hmm, you know, I kind of got that little Mission Impossible thing. But anyway, yeah. So back in the 1980s, everyone respected each other. Kids even respected their parents. When you were grounded, you were grounded. Well, back in the 90s, you snuck out when you were grounded. Like, back in the 90s, kids were more, I guess, like me, but kids were a little bit more defiant, like, on their parents. Like, we're talking back a little bit than we should. We're, like, a little bit too grown. That's what my mom's complaining was. My mom would complain about my sister, like, look, you acting a little bit too grown. And, it's just, we're grounded, but like, we're going on anyway. You know, but and we're just gonna make sure our parents don't know about it. So we're back in the 90s, like kids were kind of more sneaking out, but back in the 80s, you were grounded, that was it. But I think back in the 80s too, you were spanked a lot more. You got your ass like beat a lot more. You just did. If you were just effing up and just all kind of like wilding out or whatever. Oh no, you no 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 no. Corporal punishment was a thing, and I got it plenty of time. So yeah, but yeah, 1980s was a time for uh, everyone to interact with I'll tell you something about phone etiquette back in the 1980s. Let's talk about that. Here's how phone etiquette is back in the 1980s. Like, you know, hello, you know, hello. This is Easton. May I speak to Karen? Or it was hello, hello. Yes, may I speak to Karen? Like, yes. Who is this? Oh yeah, this is Easton. Yeah. Like, I don't know who you are, or whatever. But it depends what kind of voice. But back then you had to be there was a phone etiquette, and you had to approach a telephone call with like a lot of respect because you're talking to a parent, right? Like, think of it this way: like, I'm a child trying to talk to an adult, and I have to respect that adult so I can talk to another child, which is, the girl I like. So it's kind of like, when you're calling someone on the phone back then, you had to have your wits about you. You couldn't just say anything. Yo, what's up? Yeah, from like my little girl, oh, my little, yeah, you know what I'm saying? You can't be, nah, nah, nah. You were respectful when you used the telephone in order to call someone else's house in order to speak to whoever you wanted to speak to, you know? And if they weren't there, you would be like, oh, okay, well, can you tell them that such and such called? And you're like, yeah, of course. And then, that was the end of the conversation. And, there was no hard feelings. There was no ghosting. There was no, you know what I mean? There was no this or that. You know what your parents did? They took a message for you. Like they wrote down on a piece of paper who called and what their phone number is to call them back, and they put that on underneath a refrigerator magnet for whoever that missed that call to, like, hey, oh, this person called. So like there was like I'm saying like values within the family and the dynamic structure thereof were completely different back then. Like it was common for mother and father to be present in the home, raising children and being a healthy family who argue or who may have disagreements, but who vacation during the summer, who uh, who do things with other families. You know, hey, it's the whatevers and the whatevers, and we like to go bowling, and we like to do this every other year, and we like to go places every other year, like all of these um, communities um, communities were more prevalent back then. You know, my neighborhood that I grew up in, off of Glen Point on the northeast side, like my family took vacations. Like we went to Orlando, Florida for Disney. Like there's still some pictures that I've got. I want to know if they're on my. I think I have one on my Facebook. I'm not sure. I was very very little. I don't think I'm gonna look for it right now, but it's out there. Probably on my Facebook. But yeah, I mean, we drove all the way there. We drove all the way back. Um, we've taken trips to New York. We've done the family vacation thing. We've done the let's go to Astroworld. Let's go to let's go to the whatever theme park kids for kids or whatever. I mean that these were things to be expected back in the 1980s. I mean, I just really wish that you know we could find ways of getting back to that. Um, Making it the norm for you to be outside in a social environment in order to interact with other people and for other people to interact with you. And to be looking up and at other people rather than down and at your phone. I mean, real life does not exist in any kind of digital era, right? Or space. It only exists outside. Everything about this world, this universe, who you may or may not want to hang out with is outside your house and not on your phone. So, I don't know. I work at a job where I interact with strangers every day. I say hello, I say goodbye, or well, I say see you later, or I say the things I'm required to say, as a clerk or whatever. But I don't cross any boundaries. I mean, I could with one or two, It depends, but I don't want to be known as someone who does that, you know. So I keep it real plain and simple. Even though like there are some women that are attractive that come within like range. I mean, it's like, yeah, well, you're on the job, you know. If it's meant to be, you know, we'll you know, it'll go somewhere. But you know, it's hard to like try and play into a, you know, just saying. But what this job has taught me is how to speak to and deal with, you know, people you don't know, right? That don't know you. I mean, my name tag is, you know, sits on my actual chest, so people can read my name. People don't know my name. I can't really run or hide from accountability because people know my name. So, you know, which is fine. I mean, you can't hide behind, you know, nicknames or anything like that in real life. So, uh, but I like it's. I haven't worked in an environment where I'm dealing with customers and people for over 20 years. So it's strange and new for me to open myself up and say hello to regular people and talk about some aspects of my life I probably shouldn't, don't want to share or shouldn't, but you know, people ask about what I think about this and about that. I'm like, you know, maybe, sort of, but I don't know. It's just I try not to make myself too vulnerable. I mean, I am on the job, and I mean, I know I'm a real person, and they see that, so they want to get to know me as a real person. The problem is, you know, I'm on the clock, so I can't be as real as I'd like to be. I can, but you know, I they do know I'm cordial and respectful, so they kind of like that. But that's, you know, really part because I was raised in the 80s, you know. Oh God, that's my favorite. That's good. Oh, that's real good. Anyway, so yeah, in the 1990s, Variety was a time of like mostly evolution of digital media technology, uh, cassette players that can also play AM, FM stations, digital outputs on devices were starting to come into focus, and the CD player started to become a thing. It was replacing the tape player. The CD player is able to play more media than a tape player. So um, people started switching from Walkmans to Discmans, and you know, it at the later end of the 90s, we started seeing writable discs, writable media. Um, uh, since we had blank cassettes and VHS tapes that you can read and write, um, yeah, now we had, excuse me, writable discs. Writable disc writers. Technology back then was more expensive. To have a home computer system, which is just a monitor, keyboard, mouse, and a CPU, all of these four things used to cost thousands of dollars back in the day, back in the 90s. Like for real. Like $2,000. Easy. Easy. We're talking a 56K modem, dial up. You had to have an internet service provider in order to have the dial on your behalf through an internet um, service provider to do the negotiations to allow you to go into the World Wide Web to access the World Wide Web. So um, I have been involved with the internet since 1995. My mom was in the Air Force, and she had to log into her computer from DOS with WinExe, the executable command. And from there, um, she could access files and print up reports or whatever it is she needed to do for work. But what I would do is play either Solitaire or Minesweeper. Those were the only two games that were available on the PC back then, in case you were bored. So if you were a child and you had a computer, you could either play Minesweeper or Solitaire. And Solitaire was interesting. I mean, it was something to do, especially if you won and if you beat it. I mean, nothing like digital cards running across your screen as pure entertainment. But that's what you did with a computer back then. Um, Looking stuff up on the internet in 1995, you can do that in a high school computer lab, but you really couldn't do that at home until later in the 90s, until maybe 96, 97. I want to say the first operating system everyone had access to was, I believe, 95. Of course, that's not Windows' first operating system, but just the one that everyone had access to at the time was 95. That was kind of widely released. And then I believe after 95 was 98. And Windows 98 was far more graphical use resourced because PC gaming had been a thing, and you needed graphics and memory in order for PC gaming to work and run smoothly. These were games like Quake, Doom, maybe Duke Nukem. The original PC games back then, you had to load a CD into the CD player. You had to load the disc. The disc had to load the game up in order for you to play it. And yeah, back then, PC was probably your most advanced gaming console. Probably is in some sort of way, but because of the peripherals you can, add to a PC, and the compute power you can give a PC is probably 10 times more powerful than any console. I mean, to be real about it. But back then, in the 90s, um, yeah, you had an IBM compute. You had your Apple computer, which you can click and color fill in, watch color fill in, and these little numeric values, and make a nice artwork picture. You got all the colors right. You can play the Oregon Trail. Just watch out for the snake bites. Because they can kill you. They can eat you. And the game was over if you got bit by a snake. But yeah, the 1990s were more vibrant, colorful, still respectful. The 80s and the 90s were a respectful time period to exist in the dating pool. Um, people were um, still more sociable in the 90s as well. I think bars and clubs kind of took off in the 90s. In the 80s, it was more parties. Um, See, 80s had usually parties at somebody's house, while during the 90s, you usually went out to a bar or club during the weekend. I think it's better to have house parties. I think house parties are a representation of a social gathering where everyone can just kind of like hang out and be themselves rather than go to a establishment where they may have to comport themselves some kind of way. Now, if you look at 80s movies, they're all about house parties. Parties because the parents went away somewhere. Weird Science and Pretty in Pink, all of them house parties, you know? I'm sorry, not Pretty in Pink. Yeah, Pretty in Pink too had a house party. And 16 Candles was, house party. And movie House Party, House Party. Um, yeah, so in the 90s, it was more like clubs, though, bars, social events, hangouts, going out, um, looking good, uh, um, meeting your person at this bar somewhere that you frequent or got invited to, or you heard someone else was going to. So stuff like that in the 90s was about more, going out. But whether it's the 80s or the 90s, how we approached and like respected each other was completely different than now. Uh, we we need to get back to a time, and I do believe that we need to change and update our media in order to reflect the simplicity of how people used to communicate back in the 80s and 90s, and get back to being happier, speaking aloud, meeting strange people that we don't know, introducing ourselves, um, being real with our ages, our weight, our height, our everything, our situation. It's about time that we start getting to a point where we are accept, accepting of each other's situation, um, no matter what it is, as long as this chemistry that we got going on is working for the both of us. So, yeah, I would like to kind of leave it with that. Uh, I don't want to take up too much of your day. It is my birthday, so I do plan on celebrating a little bit more of it. I wanted to come up on here and make these statements though on my birthday and spend time with y'all on my birthday, just to shout people out. There's some people and fans that follow me on TikTok and Instagram or what have you. You guys can. I dropped my dance videos, and I just put up my Patreon account like not even yesterday or the day before yesterday. So I have a Patreon account now, and that's where all my social media content will live. But I have I never thought I'd be a social media guy. What the hell? Anyway, I have Facebook, Patreon, Discord, um, TikTok, YouTube channel, and Instagram. So all of my identity, my entire online identity is going to be Enter the Black Dragon. Um, it's mostly going to be underscored in between on the at when you're adding me or whatever that's called when you're trying to tag me or find me for something. So Yeah, on across all social media platforms, I am going to be. This is my identity. I've been under Enter the Black Dragon for the past almost 20 years now, and it's loosely based off of Bruce Lee's Enter the Dragon, but it's the idea behind Enter the Black Dragon was taking Bruce Lee's storyline and merging it with black exploitation meets the Last Dragon. So Enter the Black Dragon was supposed to be one of the identities that I hold in my character in my movie that I write. Is basically like a descendant of a kung fu master who understands the glow and like uh, um, like I don't know, like confronts all these types of people in order to claim um, martial arts supremacy. So you know. Yeah, it's there's Shogun, the Shogun of Harlem, and all that, and it's really an interesting movie I wrote. I mean, I wrote it a while ago, but I hope somebody somewhere picks it up, does something with it. It'd be nice and cool to see it made, even if I have nothing to do with it. It'd be nice to see something I made get born into reality. But anyway, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I get to spend like some of my birthday with y'all. And to people who enjoy my content or like what I do, whether it be the game streams on Call of Duty or um, some of my long rants, like this one here, and on multiple topics, whether it be dating or marriage or something like that. So I'm going to try and produce more content now that I have this kind of setup here. I don't know how long my streams are going to be. I mean, maybe an hour. I don't want to keep people, 2, 3. I'm not a 2 or 3 hour kind of guy. I mean, not right now. I mean, maybe if I had like someone to talk to, like a guest panelist or something like that. But I don't know how to do that right now. So on it'll probably most likely be on TikTok, right? I'll be on TikTok. I'll bring someone up as a panelist or something like that, and then see if they had any questions. Because to be honest, what I wanted to do in my 44th wisdom is to speak with like people who are younger than I am, whether they're 30 years old or 20 years old. And if you guys had any questions about the 1980s or 90s or about what life was like without the internet, like it was a completely different era. Everyone was talking to everyone on the regular, always on the phone, blah, 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 blah. People were talking. People talked to each other all the time back in those days. No one was texting each other. No one was on their phone. It's a complete, total different living experience. So if you had any questions about maybe what life was like back in the 90s or back in the 80s, I would like open up a panel or something and invite people to join and see if they had anything to say or contribute or see if they had I don't know I something like that. But until then, I do work later on today, so that's why I'm not being on here too long. But tomorrow I will be off, so I will be back tomorrow. Probably in the morning, maybe like 10 something Central Time. I'm in Texas, so Central Standard Time is how I'm living. But I guess I just want to tell people about all of my, social media accounts. Check me out if you like any of my content, whether it be the dance videos or the podcasts that I've been on, or the shows that I come up and edit or not edit but produce. these podcasts, like these live streams. I also have my Call of Duty. I do play a lot of Call of Duty, and I do broadcast when I do play sometimes. That's also on my YouTube and my Patreon. So you can check that out if you're into that. But there's multiple ways of getting at me. The next time I do come up here, though, we are going to get into 80s movies and 90s movies as well. I'm going to create a list of all of the 80s movies I think are just completely, absolutely badass. And we're going to talk about the characters in each movie, the story in each movie. I'm getting down to all of it when it comes to movies. I'm a movie buff. I'm a huge movie buff, TV show buff too. Um, I would like to talk to other people about movies, only if they've seen it, if they like it, um, if there's a reboot to this movie, did it suck or not, and why. So I want to get into all of this tomorrow. Um, so 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to try and be up here around on the dot, 10 a.m. And I shall see everyone later on tomorrow.